Hi there, my name is Tim, and we're going to take a look at a powerful strategy to help your students have frequent and meaningful interactions with each other several times throughout the instructional day, and it's called digital buddy boards. To make digital buddy boards work, one of the things that you'll need is just a way to arrange and rearrange students into pairs. You'll need to have something for buddies to do, and it's usually helpful to have a list of these kinds of things ready in advance. And then finally, you'll need a time and a place for buddies to do buddy stuff. Let's take a look at each of these in order. So the first thing that you'll need to make digital buddy boards practical and efficient in your classroom is to have some way of pairing and rearranging student pairs throughout the week. So one of my favorite tools for using this is actually Trello. Trello is a free service. There is a paid version of it, but the free version of it will work just fine. And here's a screenshot of a sample buddy board that I made. It took me about, 10 to 15 minutes to make. And one of the things that Trello does really well is that you can create these lists, and these lists are just very, very flexible. You can change these lists anytime you want. These lists are the names of the guided reading groups that were in the third grade class, the last time I was a third grade teacher, so they don't have too much meaning to anyone else other than me. But what you'll notice, though, is that in addition to being able to name the list, of course, you could group kids by teams, but you're also able to very easily pair them up. So it looks like I'm buddied up with Malik, Lucien's buddied up with Aubrey, Sylvester's buddied up with Matilda, and so on and so forth. The other thing that's really easy to do is, can't do it on a screenshot as easily, but Trello itself, you can move these cards around. So maybe I want Sierra to be Cassandra's buddy, or maybe I want Don Shay to move down to be Etienne's buddy. It's really easy to move students into different places. So you can pair and rearrange the pairs fairly easily within Trello. The next thing you need to make digital buddy boards function the way you want them to in your classroom is to have something for buddies to do. Now, one outstanding resource if you work with primary or intermediate age students is Sanford Harmony. Sanford Harmony, I think, has some really outstanding social and emotional learning curriculum that you can sign up for at sanfordharmony.org. It's all free, and one of the things that I like is actually in the box of Sanford Harmony stuff, or actually I don't even think it is a box anymore. I think it's all digital. There are giant lists of buddy up conversations, or just different things that buddies can do that could be adapted for digital learning spaces. Now, however, you do have to sign up for it. There's some training involved. It's probably a lot more than most of us are really looking for in this particular webinar. But if you have access to it, it's got a lot of great things to offer, and it's something that I've used in my own practice and could recommend. Another option for looking for something for buddies to do is to just Google conversation starters for kids. Now, one of the things that I do want to know is that I wouldn't necessarily simply take those conversation topics and use them uncritically in the classroom, especially for digital learning spaces, especially when we look at things through the lens of equity or through the lens of a trauma-informed practice. We want to be very careful to make sure that anything that we're asking students to respond to is definitely something that is just very, very low risk and high access. We want to make sure that anybody who's in our learning spaces is able to participate in the activity without any particular risk of disclosing something they don't want to disclose or to experience any kind of harm as a result of participating in the activity. And we also want to make sure that anybody is able to access the activities. So, for example, to tell me about the best and worst parts of your day. Now, that might feel very low risk for a lot of our students, but for some students, the worst parts of our day, it can be pretty bad. It could be something that might not be appropriate to share with a buddy that we don't know very well just yet. The whole point is to get to know people and to develop that level of safety and trust where we are able to trust each other more and more and more. The other one is high access. For example, this particular one, what's your favorite cereal, might seem like a very high access kind of thing unless your family doesn't eat cereal for breakfast. That isn't something that you shop for at the store. So you really think through ways to make sure that anybody participating in these kinds of conversations are able to do so from a perspective of very low risk and very high access. Of course, the point is to have meaningful, frequent interactions with every single student in our class. The other thing to note is that your buddy up activities can have an academic focus. They might be something that just involves a quick chat, or it could be something that's a bit more involved, like one of these connection activities. Now, all of these are ones that I've seen done before in other kinds of classrooms, either when I was a principal at an elementary school that implemented Buddy Up, or they're just other kinds of things that just have come up through some brainstorming sessions with other educators that I work with. So, for example, if an academic version of Buddy Up might be, go get with your buddy and add images to vocabulary words. Perhaps there's a Google document and you can simply use the insert image in the Google document to add some images to vocabulary words. Perhaps you might sequence the events of today's read aloud together, and that could simply be done in dialogue, or it could be done through the private chat feature in your remote learning platform. Perhaps you're rehearsing your readers theater, practicing math facts. Maybe you're going to set up some breakout groups so your buddies can read together. I might read the book that I'm reading right now, and then my buddy might read to me. We could write number riddles with our buddies. And of course, any of these things can be adapted to be developmentally appropriate for the age level of students that you're working with as well. Now, these quick chats are also really great activities too. One example of that, let me just erase a little bit here, is list who lives in your house. Now, note, I didn't say describe who lives in your house. I didn't say anything about the relationship. I simply said list who lives in your house. And that could be an interesting thing to know. Another one might be, what song do you wish would always play? What's a movie that you could watch over and over? What's your favorite outside game to play? All of those things can be adjusted for the developmental readiness of the students that you work with. But one of the things to note is list who lives in your house is actually a Buddy Up activity that came from the early childhood version of Buddy Up from Sanford Harmony. And it was one of my adult staff members' favorite ones to engage in when we used Buddy Up as a staff. Now, the other thing that you might want to consider is perhaps your Buddy Up activities are really more of a connection activity, something that's going to take a little bit longer to do. One of the things that I really enjoyed as a principal was creating secret handshakes with different fifth graders. It was a Buddy Up activity that I could do even when it wasn't Buddy Up, digital buddy time. So, one idea was to create a secret handshake with your buddy. So obviously, creating a secret handshake is hard to do through a screen, but there's also other elements that we might be able to do. There could be digital high fives, there could be dabs involved, there could be certain moves, it could be a salute of some kind, but it's just something that's a connection between you and your buddy. Another option is to write a funny sentence one word at a time. I'm noticing a lot of schools that I work with are discovering Jamboard and how easy it is to get a lot of collaboration among students through Jamboard. It'd be pretty easy, I think, to create a Jamboard drawing party if you're already connected via devices. In a hybrid environment, it might be a little bit trickier to do. You might have to just do your drawing party on a piece of paper. But the point is, it's not so much how the drawing happens, it's just that we're doing it together. So when you're thinking of what you want your buddies to do, I believe that you're going to get the most out of digital buddy board if you think through this list of activities in advance, so that when you have an opportunity to use your digital buddy board, it's as simple as saying, all right, get with your buddies, talk about what movie you could watch over and over. The last ingredient to successfully implementing digital buddy boards is that you'll want to make sure that you thought about a time and a place for buddies to do buddy stuff. Now, in on-site learning, time and place for Buddy Up activities was pretty simple to figure out. Students could just turn and talk right where they were or find a spot in whatever the learning space happened to be at the moment. Digital learning spaces is a bit tricky, but it's still possible to adapt digital buddy boards for digital learning spaces. So one example is just to think about time. Typically, buddy boards work best when you've got a good sense of when you want to do them. So kind of natural transition breaks are usually things that you might want to think about. So either at the beginning or end of a lesson are good times to get buddies together, especially if it's just a matter of talking or reflecting about some of the academic content. Of course, the social emotional content can be integrated very, very nicely right alongside that academic content. Another opportunity for a buddy activity or for time for buddies to get together might be before or after lunch. Monday mornings, Friday afternoons, those are all fantastic times for buddies to have a chance to get together to do the stuff of Buddy Board. Now, the other thing that you'll need to think through is, where is that place going to be? Now, if you're using Zoom or some other kind of a remote learning platform that offers breakout groups, assigning buddies to breakout groups is a very, very easy way to get buddies into their groups. It's another way to do that. Another opportunity is even to think of how this might work asynchronously. Could students be collaborating on some kind of digital document together? All of those are great places for that buddy up activity to happen. The main thing is to think through, when would you like it to happen, and then where are buddies actually going to go? All right, so in review, if you're going to implement buddy boards in your digital learning space, what you'll need to think about how you're going to arrange and rearrange your buddies. How are you going to take your roster and make it easy for buddies to know who's supposed to be buddied with who? We've shown a couple of tools that you can do that. Also, you'll want to think about, and ideally think about with your team or other people who really know your students and your learners and your staff well, is what are buddies supposed to do? So you have your way to arrange and rearrange buddies. Now you'll need to make sure that you've got a long list of things for buddies to do. And we've also explained a little bit earlier where you can find those things and how you can develop that list. And then finally, you'll want to make sure that you have a time and a place for buddies to do buddy stuff. So ideally, this happens at natural transition points in your day anyway, and generally shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 minutes for buddies to get together. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and I hope this is supportive as a way for you to strengthen digital community in your digital learning space. For more resources on topics around social emotional learning and other ways to support your learners' social, emotional, and academic achievement, you can find me at tgseducationalconsulting.com and also at Twitter at @tgravoisha. It's an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you today. I hope that building classroom community with the digital buddy board is something that you find supportive and just warms your heart as much as it warms your practice.